Okay, guys. So, no one knows this, but I'm a college brat. Okay? I'm a college brat. Alright. So, as being a college brat, you gotta read college books. Like this psychology book. Now, everyone always loves to talk about how left college is, how it's always on the left. And you can see it. But I've never seen it so just blatantly expressed. Except in this psychology book. Like my history book, it'll say like one or two lines that are just completely left. Completely just in the left. And I just look at it and like, oh, whatever. And just keep going. But in the psychology book, it's just so bad. It's so social justice warrior. It's like, and the arguments are terrible. Alright? And the reason it makes me so angry is because the arguments are just so bad. And some of the stuff I agree with. Like, IQ and race, for example. I don't know if you can see this shit, but it's right fucking there. And earlier in the textbook, it talks about how poor people usually have lower IQ kids, right? That makes total sense. That makes total sense because the environment's worse, they don't educate their kids as well, so on and so forth. But whenever you take those low-income family kids and adopt them out to higher-income families, they usually increase by 30 IQ points. Now, their argument for why race doesn't matter in this point is that whenever you take black kids and take them to the white kid families, they gain 15 IQ points. That's fucked. They fucked their own argument. They didn't distinguish the two. Now, if you're going to make an argument like that, you can clearly see the fallacy in the argument. A normal kid would gain 30 points, but a black kid would only gain 15. Well, that's fucked. That's completely fucked. Now, generally, white people score better than black people, and Asian people score better than white people. Which invalidates their next argument. The next argument is that how it's because of the words used in the IQ test that makes white people score better than black people on the IQ test. Alright, so basically they have this fake quiz over here where it uses from terminology someone made 30 years ago that the black community used. And it's not even an IQ test, it's just questions about the black community and certain singers and people they identified with. And they use that as their argument. That if you can't score 14 out of 14, well, you're just retarded because you don't know every single black slang there is. IQ tests don't use slang. IQ tests use general language. And even so, why do Asian people commonly score more than white people if white people are making the test? Their argument doesn't make sense. Now, if you were to argue for racism, the correct argument would be, well, if they are at a mental disability, we need to know so that we can put them in special courses, so on and so forth. There are extremely intelligent black people in the world. I mean, extremely intelligent. So, I mean, they brought this shit up. They're the ones that are like, oh, IQ and race. You know, and then they say, oh, well, look, skin color doesn't matter because genetics don't matter. Which is insane. Black people get genetic disorders that white people don't get, that Asian people don't get. White people get genetic disorders that Asian people don't get, and that black people don't get. Asian people get the genetic disorders that black people and white people don't get. Because genetically we're different. We come from different lineages. White people were over in Europe, mostly, and in cold regions, where we had to develop a little bit differently for a few thousand years. Black people were in Africa, a little bit hotter, a little bit harder to live in Africa because everything in Africa wants to kill you. And Asian people, some of them, like Japanese, they're a little bit different from the Chinese, who the Chinese were over there, and the Japanese were stuck on an island for, I fucking forget how long. But genetically, we're all a little bit different. And is the world ready for people to say, I'm genetically better than you? Fuck no. Fuck no. If they came out tomorrow and said that white people are dumber than black people, you fucking bet black people would hold that over their head. If they came out tomorrow and said Indians are smarter than fucking American Indians, are smarter than fucking everybody else, you bet your ass they would hold it over everyone else's head. Why? Because we're mentally made to think that way. We're mentally made to think group-wise. Because all of us came from the same place. We were just a bunch of groups of people out in the wilderness somewhere trying to survive. And the group down the street that's a little bit different than us wants to kill us. We all came from that. I mean, that happens everywhere you look in human history. The American Indians did it. The Europeans did it. The Africans did it. The Asians did it. Anyone you look at did that. So we're made to think like that. So it's no stretch of the imagination to say that no, we're not ready to say someone's a little bit genetically different than me. Because hell, there are still racist bastards out there that say your skin's different, so that makes me better. Anyways, I just wanted to point out how left-leaning this is. You know, and how easily their arguments fall apart. Do I think black people are dumber than white people? Hell no. Because there are plenty of black people out there smarter than a lot of white people. Like there are plenty of white people out there smarter than a bunch of Asian people. And there are a bunch of Asian people smarter than a bunch of the normal Asian people. There are always outliers. There are always people who are dumber than everybody else as well. That's another thing that happened in here. It was like, I don't think retarded people, well, mentally disabled, it's offensive to say retarded now. I don't think mentally disabled people are in a bad way. What I mean by that is usually they can be shown to have be able to do simple jobs and certain things, not anything extreme, but they can usually do simple jobs. But there was this, after every single time it said something about someone mentally disabled, it was like this leftist rhetoric, just this extreme left. They're very loving and they have their place in the community. They're very loving and they have their place in the community. And it was after every single fucking mentally disabled mental disability. Every single one after it said, they're very loving and they have their place in the community. They're very loving and they have their place in the community. They're very loving and they have a place in the community. And it's just, they're trying to brainwash these college students so that whenever they get out, that they'll think like that. If you bring it up enough, usually people think that certain way. Like, my mother. She knew there was nothing to that Trump and Russia shit. But she kept seeing it on the news, so she started believing. I was like, Mom, it's not true. You even said it wasn't true, like, 2 weeks ago. And she's like, but I keep showing it on TV, so it must be true. That's what they do. That's what they're trying to do in these books. By bringing up just a little bit, they're saying they can brainwash people. Don't fall for it. Anyways. Have a nice day or night.